So you want to make your own custom breakable object and get it working in Unity. How do you do so? Well, let me show you. To help with this, I've actually created a new custom breakable object that's just a simple sphere, but it'll serve its purpose for what we're going to be doing in this section. And I saved two Blender files, one that's non-breakable and one that is breakable. I'm going to select both and drag them into Unity. I've made a special folder for them. This is optional just to keep it organized under sphere instead of under walls. Now I have both of these objects. The problem is that if I try to use them in my game, here's my non-breakable one and here's my breakable one. You can tell the difference because you see those little cracks in the balls. And I press play, neither of them are interactable in the game. They haven't been set up properly to actually work. And the breakable one doesn't even break apart, unfortunately. So we have to set up a few things. Let me show you how. First, I'm going to choose the non-breakable sphere because it's a bit simpler. And I need to add a couple things to it. Over in my inspector, I can click on Add Component. And the first thing I want to look for is a rigid body. This is going to give the ball some physics that allows it to be moved around and roll and interact and other things like that. But I also need to give it something called a mesh collider. This is going to allow it to be collided with, so I don't just keep on running through the whole thing. And because it's a circle, I actually have to click on convex to make this work properly. Now that that's set up, let's press run and see what happens. This ball I can now run into and push, and the spinners can actually hit them and knock them around as well. Great. What I can do now to save this template and to be able to use it again is to click on it in the hierarchy and drag it down into this section and create an original prefab. So click and drag it down and choose original prefab. Now notice I don't have the arrow beside it, meaning that it's just a simple object that if I drop in, I can make as many as I want, and all of these will have physics applied to them, so I can just push them around and interact with them like a physics object. Pretty cool. We need to do the same thing with the breakable ball so we can get that cool breaking effect, but it's slightly more complicated, but only slightly. I'm going to get rid of these non-breakable balls because I have the master copy down here. I can apply anytime that I want. And I'm going to click on the breakable sphere. This one, if I open it up, has a lot more information inside of it that I need to deal with. Because if I only apply the physics and mesh to the top level, it won't actually break apart as I want. What I need to do is select all of the inside components, the broken bits inside of it, and add the components to all of them. I need a collider, mesh collider, that's convex, and I need a rigid body. Make sure that all of them are selected while you do this. One way of checking is to just go through one at a time and make sure the settings are all the same for all of them. It looks like I did it right. Then I can collapse this back up and give it a test. When I run, I should now see that that ball shatters beautifully. Perfect. So now I have a shattering ball. But I have the same problem I did before. Well, let's save a copy of this by clicking and dragging down here, original prefab. And now I have the ability to have a breakable ball appear wherever I want. And I'm going to delete the one that's in my scene here. Just like with our walls, I can use a similar strategy for our balls. If I place a non-breakable ball in the scene and then go back to my, I guess I actually put it in my, what did I put it here? Prefabs for walls. I have my breakable wall script. I can actually apply the same script to this ball. And instead of a breakable wall here, I could technically put a breakable ball. Let me click back on the non-breakable sphere here and attach my breakable wall to this. My breakable sphere. And now if I touch this, this should turn into a breakable sphere. Right now it's solid, and when I touch it, it shatters. Look at that. That feels really cool to have breakable objects in the game. Maybe I could make, if I'm thinking about game mechanics, the idea of having one of these breakable spheres. What if I had, let's swing around to a bit more to a top-down view, and let me show you my little game concept here. Maybe I have a section of the game which I'll make a little bit bigger, stretch it out a little bit. I take one of these balls and I apply a bunch of them in a row, but only some of them are actually these breakable ones. The rest are non-breakable. So here is like the path a player could potentially take. And now I'm going to take some. Now these are all the ones that are able to break. Now I'm going to go back and just add a regular non-breakable one that doesn't have that. I'm going to copy and paste a bunch of them to kind of fill out my maze here. Let's just make sure there's no awkward collisions going on. Things are a little bit tight in here. Might have to repair this. It's just a quick, rough job to see if this idea works. I'm just kind of curious. I haven't tried this before this moment. The moment of truth will come in a second here. And we got, oh, I made these too spaced out here. And those are too tight, which is going to cause problems in the physics. They're going to bounce around with each other. And, oh, I realize there's an issue with my idea, is that, yeah, they're too closely spaced and they're behind where the camera is. But technically, if I'd done this right, some of them are pushable, but some of them are breakable to find the right pathway through. Now, the one major issue with my decision here is that a bunch of these balls that are all not breakable can still move. That was my path here, right? So what I can do is actually select all of them, and under the rigid body, I can say is kinematic, which forces them to not be allowed to move. So now what happens if I come back over here? My breakable ones are still there, but these ones aren't able to move. So they're kind of like a block in the wall that I can't get over. And these breakable ones, that one didn't work. Why didn't that one work? I must have, oh yeah, this is the right path here. These are the ones that now I can break and get through. So I clearly have to do some more development work to get this idea to work properly. But there's some cool things that you can do with the breakable objects to create some interesting game mechanics other than just have the walls that get in your way. There's an idea you can play with and try to implement much better than me. In the next and final video for this, I'm going to talk a bit about some of your project goals and particularly about how you end a level and start a new one as you think about creating your full project.